Hello. To be respectful of everybody's time, I'd like to get started on time. So if I could have everybody take a seat. I'd like to introduce and thank Commissioner Sosa for having this on a Saturday afternoon. Those who cannot make it during weekday evening are able to make it to that. So thank you very much, and the floor is yours to open up.
Yes, my name is David Sosa. I am the Commissioner for District 6. I want to thank everybody for coming out today and taking time out of your Saturday to come up and address your concerns and listen and learn a little bit about our code enforcement process, as well as, give any feedback you would like to our code enforcement officials. Mr. John O'Grady, he will be running the meeting today, and we also have several members from code enforcement that are here that will be answering any questions you have. Now, Mr. O'Grady, would you like them to ask questions during the presentation or after the presentation? Okay, thank you. All right, well, thank you. Mr. O'Grady.
Thank you, Commissioner Sosa. And yes, I'm John O'Grady. I was brought on by the city to look at several areas. The first one here is code enforcement. And what we want to do in these town hall meetings is give you a view of the history right up to the future of code enforcement through a brief PowerPoint. And that'll be done by the supervisors, who each will introduce themselves. And then we'll, at the end, have questions. What we ask about the questions is you keep it at the 10,000-foot level. So we do care about your neighbor's parking issue, but you can get with us after to give us the address. But you can make it a parking issue, and we'll talk you through parking and how we handle that, how we handle a certain violation if that is something that you need to know about. Once again, Commissioner Sosa is here. We have our city manager, John Peters, and our planning and building director, Ron Paradise, in the back there. And these are our city officials. And so with that, like I said, we're going to go through a brief PowerPoint and then go from there. So code enforcement, compliance is our goal, and you'll hear that as a theme going through. Who are your code enforcement officers? They're city employees tasked with enforcing the ordinances, the codes, and laws that are enacted in the city or the state of Florida that deal with the safety and welfare of you, the city of Deltona residents. Part of it is the beautification and the other parts of your residence that are defined within the code. And once again, our main goal is compliance. And you're going to see a couple of slides today, and I'll just preempt one or two of them because I want to reinforce that with you. You're going to go through a slide of how many calls we get, and as it goes through the funnel, you will see that we have 98.5% compliance. All right, so a lot of that is maybe the resident didn't know that they're in violation. The resident could not correct the violation without some guidance. And as you'll see through this presentation, that our code enforcement staff, that's their job, is to help each resident through to get to compliance. So now we'll start with the history, and I'll let Richard take over from here.
Hello, I'm Richard Lovett. I've been with the city since 2000. I've been with the department since 2000 when I first began. So the city was incorporated in 1995. But Volusia County took care of all of our code enforcement complaints up until September of 1996, when we decided we wanted to go on our own and have our own code enforcement department. Up until 2004, we ran a code enforcement board. At that time, we decided to go with a special magistrate to kind of speed up the process. So here's a look at our staffing levels from 1997 to 2020. You can see in 1997 we started off with 4 employees. for 57,000 people. At that time, the department was still separated in 3 different divisions, so that's why there's only showing 4. We're only talking about code enforcement at this time. In 2008, we were, at that time, joined as one department for 3 different, all 3 departments were under one, so that's why you see the spike for the 83,000 citizens. So up until now, we're at 94,000 citizens, and we got 16 total employees. That includes our office staff. So this is another one that helps show you the difference. And the top shows our population, the constant growth that the city has obtained over the last 23 years. And the bottom shows the number of staffing levels we've had. And we were hit hard during the recession with employees the same way as residents were. All right, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Danny Ron.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Danny Ron. I am the Building and Enforcement Services Customer Service Supervisor. My section is once you come in here, City Hall, you make that left, that customer service area that covers permits, code enforcement, animal control, solid waste. That's the section that I'm in charge of. Or if you called in to maybe get a complaint or have a question about certain things with that department, that's the section that I cover. My first graph here is top cold cases on the top from 2019 to 2020. Big jump in numbers there on some of the categories. The top 2 are lot maintenance and the vehicles when it comes to parking and inoperable. It's just another graph with those same numbers. Same set top 2, vehicles and lot maintenance. Now, this is a chart here for 2021. So far, from January 1st to mid-March, this is what we got so far with numbers when dealing with cases for parking and inoperable vehicles. That's a pretty significant number. Yes, we do have a lot of cases here, a lot of issues with parking and inoperables in the city. Our second top category for code violations would be the high grass and debris. This also covers like outdoor storage items that shouldn't be outside in front of the house, side of the house, that it should be within an enclosed structure, a shed, garage, inside the house. These are the cases for that. We're already at 229. Rain just started coming down within the last week or 2. Guess what? These numbers are going to start going up again because of the grass season. And we'll be out there trying to address them. Most of the cases when it comes to lot maintenance is the vacant houses. There are some houses out there still that are vacant, and we have to keep periodically going out there and addressing those violations. Now, how does a responsive city government achieve code compliance for the benefit of the entire community? Well, the community is involved in this. Reactive, different ways so you can submit a complaint. It's not just being out there proactively, but being reactive also. We have different ways to start a code case. Calling our code enforcement number, which is 386-878-8700. Her name is Becky. She's the one that receives most of these complaints. We also have backup if she's not available. And we'll try to if we miss a call, we'll definitely try to get back to you once we receive that message. There's an app that we can use also to put code cases out there. If you're out there and in the community, you see something, there's a My 311 Deltona app, which is very easily how to put a case together and send that to us so we can get that process started. City website, there's different locations on our city website, which is deltonafl.gov. Contact us. It might go to a different department, but eventually it'll get routed out to us, and we'll take care of that once we receive that. We also got direct email for code enforcement, and that will becenforcement@deltonafl.gov. Being proactive, the officers are already out in the field with their big list that they received that morning of all the re-inspections, new cases that they've been assigned to. So they'll be out there being proactive and and address those cases that they see while they're out in the field. This is called the door hanger, also called courtesy notice, violation. But yes, we use these, very common. This is our first notice, our door hanger. In the notice, we will have the description of the violation. And there's a very, we can't fit all the ordinances on this thing, but we do have a space in the bottom that we can fill in, so we can put that down. Description of the violation, how to correct the violation, and on the top, just above the address, we'll have put a date when we're going to be coming back. As for the door hanger, which is courtesy, 7 days our average time on the courtesy notice with the door hanger. Okay, here's my flow chart. So when we first start out, we see a violation. First thing we do, we're going to address it by door hanger. We're going to leave this door hanger. 7 days from then, when we come back, hopefully the case is already, the property's been in compliance, we can close out the case, no problem. If the violation still exists on the property, we'll be taking the next step. And that next step is our secondary notice. This is kind of like the official notice. It's either the abatement notice or the notice of violation. Now, with this notice, we have to post it on the property and also send this notice certified mail, and that goes to the owners listed under the property appraiser's record of Volusia County. That way, if it's not, if the owner doesn't live at that location, we definitely want them to be aware that there is a violation on this property, and that way they can take care of it. Now, when we post this notice, the average time on this one is 10 days. All right, so 10 days goes by. Now the violation gets corrected, we close out the case. If it does not get corrected, the next step will be the notice of hearing. Now, when it comes to the notice of hearing, is a preparation of another courtesy certified mail that's going to be going to the homeowner, preparing them to go in front of a hearing. And there'll be a special magistrate that they'll be presenting the case in front of. Mrs. Angela Myers will be continuing this case.
My name is Angela Meyer. I am been employed by the city since 2002, and my role is administrative supervisor and for building and enforcement services, and also the hearing clerk for the special magistrate. A notice of hearing is initiated by the code enforcement officer after the violation continues after the hanging card, and after the violation continues for the notice of violation. So the officer submits then submits the notice of hearing to the special magistrate, and the owner is notified 10 minutes minimum prior to the special magistrate hearing. And also the same notice of hearing is also posted on the city website and our bulletin board out there. The hearing occurs every fourth Wednesday of each month. The special magistrate is a licensed attorney and also a member of the Florida Bar. And he's appointed by the City Commission with jurisdiction and authority to hear and rule over code compliance matters. He assesses fines and he places liens upon properties. The special magistrate uses his findings based on the gravity of the violation, the actions that the violator takes to correct it, and also for the previous violations, the history of the property. The penalties are up to $250 a day for the first time and up to $500 a day for repeating violations. We have here a chart that shows 2019 and 2020 code cases. We can see that in 2019, we had 8,506 cases. Then they were brought, notice of violation was submitted to the special magistrate. We have 129. Before the magistrate, the special magistrate hearing, we have 118 comes to compliance right before the special magistrate, and only 11 of them remain in non-compliance, generated then fines and liens on the property. And in 2020, even with the COVID, we can see that the number even got even less number of non-compliances. So it shows clearly that the city of Deltona works hard to get our officers to work with residents to come into compliance, and bringing it up to 99% of compliance is a very small number of non-compliances. Now we can have Richard Lovett. He will be talking about now and future.
So looking at the future, and the best way to look at the future is start back at the past. In 2007, residents were hit hard with financial issues caused by the recession. Foreclosed and vacant properties continued to soar, and code had to find different ways to expand their roles to combat these challenges. And if you can see the difference in 2008 and 2020, the officers on the road, 16, the officers 12, cases 16,310, code cases in 2020, 10,376. But our population had rose. While the city has had a decrease in the number of officers over the last 12 years, the Code Enforcement Department has worked hard to keep the same quality of service to the citizens as we continue to grow. Building relationships and having knowledge of the community's needs is integral to a positive professional code enforcement approach. Code will be able to navigate the needs and wants of the citizens once they properly evaluate the strengths and challenges that they are facing. Code employees and citizens must collaborate on their needs and issues in the area. Citizens working cohesively will help Code Department create a centric path to help correct the code issues that they're facing. So Code has worked with several different agencies, including some that are not on this list. If they are not on this list, please get with us, let us know who they are, and a contact for that organization. We'll reach out to them, see what they offer for the citizens. We work with a lot of these agencies, especially when we find citizens that are in need and can't financially take care of it, and we try and get them the help the best way we can. So one department, three missions. So the Code Enforcement Department does code enforcement, animal control, and solid waste. So when that officer, you see that officer out there in that zone, he is doing all three of those jobs in that one area. So combining these three departments allows the code personnel to deal with the issues at the property instead of having to send multiple trucks out to the same property. The city of Deltona is not the only one in this area to adopt this combination. Several cities across the United States are starting to combine their departments to be more efficient with the residents in their city. This model is being considered best practices across the country. Code enforcement officers support and enhance quality of life while working to keep aging buildings, homes, properties from becoming eyesores. What you see here is the current staffing for the officers in the field. The field office includes 6 officers that have the required training for the job, 3 officers that are waiting to take class due to COVID restrictions, and 2 officers that have obtained the highest certification for code enforcement. And now I'll turn it back over to Mr. O'Grady to open up the question section.
Thank you, Richard. Just a couple slides I'd like to emphasize here. Go back. And a term I'm going to use, I think everybody's heard, and no matter what industry you're in, but a lot of times people don't want to see how the sausage is made. So you got a little glimpse of that right here. But what I want to point out is the second to last line, the compliance that we had. Okay, so then the pandemic hit, and I've sat through the last several magistrate hearings. I've looked back at the previous ones, And that number of non-compliance is going to go up. There's people out there truly struggling. But what I have seen the magistrate do is, instead of a 45-day period, he is giving a 60 or 90-day period to have the residents come back in compliance. To me, we as we go forward, we're watching the magistrate be more than compassionate on getting compliance, which I think is a good thing for the residents of the city of Deltona. And the other one I want to point out, when I came in, I was asked to look at the workings of the code enforcement, everything they take on, and compare it to best practices and help align both of them. So when I came in and I looked at best practices around the nation, I saw these three right here. It makes sense. The officers out there, they have the same, a couple of the same certifications, or they have to get one more for animal control. And I want to let you know, your code enforcement, animal control employees were already doing this. One officer has all three certifications. It's a more efficient and effective way of utilizing your resources. So I was very happy to see that. They have very passionate animal control officers. They have very empathetic code enforcement officers. So I just wanted to point those two things out. Before we go to questions, do we have the microphone? Yes, and this gentleman up here.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to have several questions throughout this meeting, but I'm going to start with this one. Can you please go back to the slide with the three? So 3 missions: code enforcement, animal control, and solid waste. Is it not true that in your contract, it states, in the near future, we will talk in more detail about moving animal control to Volusia County under a contract? Attached to this memo is some preliminary information that Volusia County Animal Control provided to me 2 weeks ago. And is it not true that you have been in those negotiations with Volusia County, and that all these things are is a rah-rah session for you to try and convince people you need to hire more employees?
Gosh, that's a loaded question. But
it's a factual question. I have your contract right here.
Okay, that's great, Mr. Stuck. What I would like to do is, and the one meeting I did not say this, and this question does come up, is animal control. We're going to talk about in June. So I don't want to answer them directly, but I'd be happy to meet offline with those. And I am not in any negotiations, just to answer that.
I've actually got communications from the county that say different.
Okay.
So I've got communications directly with the county council and with members of the county staff that are telling me that is absolutely not the case.
Okay.
That you are in and specifically, I can read to you one communication where it said that that's what you were going to go and try and do, was run it by the people. And I've yet to see anything being run by the people and run by to get the people's okay on whether they think that what's best, either to run it through Volusia County or to keep it in Deltona.
So, Mr. Stuck, I gave you my answer. If you want to call me.
And again, you can stop with that intimidation of trying to use my name. We're all here anonymously. So you can stop with that harassment.
So, sir, please don't be disruptive to the meeting. I will answer your questions afterwards.
To follow up,
Yes, sir.
my understanding is as well, and it is in your contract, that we're supposed to look towards negotiating with the county.
Yes, sir.
Are we in the process of doing that?
I am currently not in the process of negotiating animal control to go to the county. Go ahead, Mr. Peters.
I'm sorry you find tough questions disruptive.
John Peters, acting city manager. At the time I wrote that contract, we were anticipating having some discussions with the county. Prior to Mr. O'Grady coming on board, I did have a meeting with the county animal control folks. They gave me a breakdown on what staffing level would be and what the cost would be. Mr. O'Grady was aware of some of that information. He has subsequently advised me that, as this slide shows and as he has said, it's far more efficient when we already have people in the field to go ahead and handle the animal control within our organization, and it would be significantly less expensive than to turn it over to the county. So the discussion with the county ceased at that point. So I think I answered that question.
Yes, ma'am. Right here.
Okay,
Here comes the microphone.
sorry. I have multiple questions too, but they're all about different slides. So if I need to pass the mic to other people, I'm okay with that. But
fine.
since we're on this slide, so when we're talking about animal control, when there's a deceased animal on the road, I don't know if this is even the appropriate topic, but there's a lot of Facebook pages that try to help people get reunited with their lost pets. And so sometimes somebody will say, hey, there's a light brown dog at the corner of Cortland and Howland, right? So if I'm missing that particular dog, I might go see if that's my dog, and if so, I'm going to collect it so I can give it a proper farewell. But a lot of times, these animals are on the side of the road for an extended period of time. Is it animal control? Like, do we call animal control to pick up the animals? Because I've been told before to call the garbage people, and that just seems very inhumane. That's just my opinion. It's very
I'm
inhumane.
going to have Mr. Lovett answer that question.
Okay, with deceased animals, what we do is we go out there, we scan the animal, see if we can find a chip or if it's got any tags on that. No, we do not pick them up because we don't want to cross-contaminate whatever they have into the boxes of the truck, or if we have another animal on that truck, cross-contaminate whatever they have onto that animal. So we have a contract with Waste Pro. We do have a contract with them, and they will go and pick them up on the side of the road.
And so they go to the dump.
Correct, ma'am, that's where they go.
Okay. I'm going to move to my next question, if that's okay.
Yes.
Can you go back to the slide that has the list of the agencies that code enforcement works? That one, thank you. So I was thinking about this on my way here, and I'll be honest, I'm not familiar because thankfully I've not been in a situation where I've needed code at my house. But is it a case when code goes out and they see that perhaps there's a structural thing, you know, it's not like overgrown grass or things like that, are they providing some kind of brochure or literature? Because I understand from attending city commission meetings that as a city, the city staff can't like go and solicit somebody and say, hey, do you want to use this program and apply for SHIP funds for your roof? But if they're out there for an occurrence like this, are they provided material so they can look it up and see if that's something they want to explore? Is that what's happening?
So our officers know about some of the programs that we have that we can reach out to and get. So what they do is they try and get the information, they talk to the people, see what their needs, and try and figure out as much as they can. We forward that information over to these and try and get them help. Right now we're working with one. We were turned down by one organization to get them some help. They're needing a roof on their house. So now we're working with a different organization to try and help them out because both of them are in bad health conditions. So we're trying other ways to try and get them that help that they need to get them back, that house back livable the way it needs to be.
But that is an excellent suggestion, and it is a best practice for us to have a city brochure that we can hand to them. That way we're not pushing or advocating, however you want to word it, for a certain organization, but they've all been approved by the city manager and the city commission, but we're putting that together. And there's a lot of, you know, a 501c3, it has to go through legal, you know, do they have the liability if we're a city and recommending? A lot of red tape, but that is one of the suggestions that we're bringing forward to actually have those brochures on the truck.
And then my last question, at least for now, is about the slide that was about how many code cases there were and how many went before the special magistrate. So that one, thank you. So the one that says special magistrate cases with compliance, so that's people who have had code come out and say they were given a 10-day warning and that 10 days is up, then they begin to getting fined, am I right? And so then the 118 down to 83 is people who ultimately corrected the situation and I'm assuming paid the fine, but then the people that say special magistrate cases with non-compliance fines, those are the people that are going to contest the violation? Is that what that means?
Okay, the cases that goes through the magistrate, he'll give them time to make a corrections as you usually request, like if you need 10 days to pull a permit, for example. You have those 10 days. He said you have 10 days, and if you comply based on those 10 days before the end of this period, then you're not going to have a fine. But if you continue, then he will establish a fine. So those cases that are showed over there as non-compliance are the ones that, even though they got that period given by the special magistrate, they complied, then those are not counted as that one. The 1.9% or the 11 are the ones that did not comply, even though the magistrate gave them time to comply.
So do the citizens request to go before the magistrate, or they're commanded to go when they're non-compliant?
The citizens, you can request to go to the magistrate only if you want to reduce your fine if you already have one. But the cases are only presented by the officers once they see that after the door hanging and the notice of violation, you continue in violation, you didn't correct it. That's when they submit the case to be heard by the magistrate.
Okay, and then, so then the citizen is ordered to go before the magistrate at that point?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
What?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you had a question.
That's okay. No worries.
You'll be next.
Who's that? Okay, so bear with me with my question, comment. Might be a little long-winded. So there was a slide that had a photo, and I think it was kind of captured a lot of yard debris, a bunch of tires. What's the scenario, right? Because we kind of talked about how the city, 1995, so a lot of our population is aging. They no longer have the financial means nor the physical means to potentially clean up a mess like that, right? And something like that happens, I think we can all agree, over a very long period of time. So is there anything in place where arrangements can be made with waste management that, hey, if this individual can maybe get a group of people together to help them bring all that stuff to the curb, that waste management will make a special pickup?
Dan?
Yes, ma'am. We have done that with Waste Pro before. We've worked with some of the churches and stuff. They've called me up. They've done a clean out. They moved everything out to the front yard, and we've called and asked for them to do a special pickup at no charge to that person, and they have done that for us.
Okay, so if we're folks in the community that do work like that and that help some of the neighbors, would it be you we would go through to, like, ahead of time to see what we might be able to arrange?
Yeah, and what we do is ask you to just get in touch with us in advance.
Okay.
So that way we know what's coming out there, when it's going to be put out there, and that way we can try and coordinate everything with Waste Pro to get it picked up as soon as possible.
Okay, perfect, that makes sense. I had one more question, sorry. Oh, so this is kind of like a question, but more maybe of a feedback comment. So I saw the mission is, and I'm paraphrasing, but responsible for evaluating private properties regarding all local codes and ensuring properties are in compliance. I would love to see maybe the word consistency in there, because I think what my experience as a community member is that maybe like residential residents are maybe held a little bit more to becoming compliant than some commercial properties and businesses that may be, and I'll give a great example. I know I'm kind of like going down a little from the 10,000 foot, but if you drive up and down Deltona Boulevard, there are so many businesses there that just really, you could tell they're not in compliance, that have been for a while. So maybe just some feedback.
And I'll address that since I've been here watching that, and it's a great question or a great suggestion, because Deltona Boulevard's come up several times, but we're watching what the officers are doing. There's several, once again, the sausage, there's several that are in foreclosure. There's several that were in foreclosure, so they're being brought to the magistrate for compliance, but then they're getting an extension because there's a new owner, or we're sitting down with new attorneys that the owner just hired, so then they get another extension. So I say all that to say it is being addressed. It does take a little bit longer than a residence that we're dealing with one owner, but it is being addressed. It just takes a little longer.
And so that's great perspective, and I thank you for sharing that, because I don't know that I was aware of that. Is there a place people can go on the website to see that? Because I think if folks could see, oh, something is in a process of being done.
part of the best practices that we're looking at implementing with Mr. Peters is if there is a code violation on 123 Main Lane, it's going to be up there so the residents or whoever goes to the website are able to see. There's different software and programs out there that we can put on that'll answer these questions. Yes.
Great, thank you.
I didn't see where Mr. Freeman here was disrupting any meeting by asking questions. I didn't hear him yell, curse, or do anything boisterous. And I mean, we're getting to an intimidation factor there, where you stop him like that. That's not the right thing to do. Now, getting back to the citizens and reaching out to code enforcement, on my street, 2 neighbors, one reported the neighbor for some violations. Code enforcement, nobody here, it's none of these people here. The code enforcement officer told the people who called up on him, and for 3 or 4 years now, they're feuding. And I mean, that's not tolerable. I mean, that has to be something that needs to be addressed.
I completely agree.
And I mean, it's really, really unfair. And I just explained to Mr. Peters, they put in some sewer pipes, drain pipes here years ago, and they're full of water, and in the grates in the people's front yards, the mosquitoes come out of it. It's terrible. They can't come out of their house. And I've called City Hall about it, and nothing's ever been done. But I know John Peters will take care of it. I know that. And other than that, I've been here 32 years. I never had a problem with code enforcement.
All right, so I'm going to go back to, I'm going to move on to my next question. Can you please go back to the slide on the special magistrate? Property lien up to $250 a day. These are fines, and I've got dozens of meetings that I've gone to and recorded personally. These are fines being implemented of up to $250 a day or $500 a day. Repeat. Can you please tell me how that comports with the 8th Amendment?
This is part of an ordinance that the magistrate goes by.
Can you please tell me how it comports with the 8th Amendment to the Constitution?
So to answer your question, sir, no.
Okay, good enough. Now, can you, by the way, can you guys, is that a picture, that picture that you used over and over again, was that actually taken in Deltona? And can that be verified by the person who actually took the photo as to where it was taken, the time it was taken, that we can verify that that is not something that was a clip art you found on Google to use as an example and over-exaggerate?
Yes, that picture was taken by one of our officers when we were doing an abatement at that property.
Okay. Going back to parking, I've asked this question now at several meetings, and I've yet to get an answer. As far as the fines or penalizing people for parking a car because they've run out of room, in a lot of cases, simply because roads have been widened, they've lost half their driveway, and now they're parking a car on their yard. What is the government, and again, I will ask this with particularity, under the law, what is the governmental interest in safety, and how does putting mulch down change that section of geography to now it's okay? What is the governmental interest in saying you cannot park your property the way you wish on your property without putting down mulch, which does nothing to change the actual geographic properties? Can you please, with particularity, give me the governmental interest?
It is an ordinance with the city. And
the city, in order to create an ordinance, the ordinance has to be based on governmental interest. There has to be a safety concern. What is the safety concern?
so I cannot give you an exact answer. So.
Okay, so basically, this is just we decided we're going to go around and violate people who have run out of space because now they've got kids that have grown up. or whatever, and they're parking because the only place they have, or look at Saxon Boulevard, look at Howland Boulevard, where people's driveways have been taken from them. They have no other place to park, but we don't like it, so we're just, without any governmental interest, without any safety concern, we're just going to go find them because what? Somebody didn't like it? That's not how government works. Government work doesn't work on the basis of somebody sitting up there, well, I don't like the way that looks. I mean, we even have feuds over the color of the mulch. People put down different colored mulch. I don't like the color of that mulch. What is the governmental interest in the color of the mulch? What changes that geographic space by putting down mulch? We need an answer to that question. This community, this city, needs an answer to that question.
Okay, so we have taken that, and we will put that up on the website. I will try to get you an answer. Thank you.
And lastly, right now, and then I'll give somebody else a turn, but I will be coming back. One more question I have regarding your contract. Number one, and this is under tasks. Assist with managing changes in code enforcement services using the outline provided by Captain Lee at the city workshop on January 11, 2021. Can you please tell me when the commission voted that we were going to adopt the Daytona Beach outline?
No, I can't, but
Commissioner, do you remember taking a vote on adopting Daytona? Because Deltona is not Daytona.
No, we did not vote on adopting the Daytona outline. What we did do, we have issues with code enforcement. A lot of residents have had issues with code enforcement. And the commission agreed to bring in Mr. O'Grady, as you stated earlier, to look at taking animal services and sending it to the county. That was part of the contract. The second issue, we've had issues with code enforcement. A lot of residents have complained, one, against retaliation if they speak out, two, just the attitudes of some of the code enforcement officers when they're presented. Now, Mr. O'Grady was brought in to review those cases, review code enforcement as a whole, and see if there's any validity to those concerns and make recommendations to Mr. Peters and the commission at that point.
So I can be clear on the process, because I think I heard someone mention before about telling names and whatever. But so if someone calls into code enforcement, hey, my neighbor's parking 15 cars on their front lawn, do you need to disclose your name?
Danny?
Can I answer that? There's no requirement to disclose a name. If you say anonymous, we will keep it anonymous.
Okay. Thank you.
But just like public record, anything that goes into our database is public record. So hopefully no phone calls, no names are put in there. But yes, if you say you want to remain anonymous, we'll keep you anonymous.
Okay, I have another question, because I just picked out a word you just said. So when you say hopefully your name and phone number are not put in a database, is the process that it's not put in? Like what?
Let's just say you called to say, hey, you might have requested some information and the officer wasn't available. Miss Jane Doe called with this phone number, please return a phone call. And it goes into our database, and that's public record.
But if you say you want to be anonymous, we put you in as anonymous. Sometimes the humans putting it in may fail, but it should be anonymous, and we're working on correcting all of that.
But the process should be it's truly is anonymous.
If I call and I want to be anonymous, then it should be anonymous.
That's correct.
Thank you.
That procedure changed recently, right? It's not always been like that, or not even been close to being like that. There were times when people called code enforcement that have it on tape. What's your name, sir? What's your address, sir? How do I know? Come on. I'm just asking a simple question here. That had to change recently, right?
No, sir.
It's not always been. No. I hate to argue with you, believe me, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It's not been like that. I had so many neighbors that tell me they call up and they, now, I'm not talking about recently now. I'm talking about maybe 6 months ago or whatever. They wanted their name, they wanted their phone number, and a couple of times they were hung up on. And like I said, I'm not trying to disrespect you or anything like that. I'm only telling you the truth. It happened to me.
Okay. In certain situations, for example, let's just say the complainant is calling and saying the violation is in the backyard behind a privacy fence. The officer might not be able to see it from the front of the house, you know, the area that he's has access to. Then we ask if, sir or ma'am, would you be willing to provide a name and number that way and your address, so that way they can, officer can be allowed to go into your property to be able, let's say, give them access to the backyard so they can see the violation. In that, that's when we do ask for the name and number and the address.
Okay. How come then they ask you, well, give me your name and number and I'll get back to you?
That all depends on the situation. If it's something that we're going to need to contact you to give you an update, or you want an update or something of that nature, we'd need to have your phone number, so therefore when we return a phone call, we can address it properly or ask for the proper person.
Just to make this simple so we could see what I'm talking about here, what happened was Waste Pro came, they were in a hurry, the garbage can spilled just on the street and on the guy's front yard, and I called up. I said, what the hell is this? I said, and I called up, and they wanted my name and my phone number, and they said, we need that to get back to you. That's exactly what happened. Now, I understand your position here, but it's not always been like that. That is my point. I think you're missing that. It's not always been like that.
So I will say,
it's changed. Let's face facts here. It has changed.
so we are in
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How long have you worked at code enforcement?
Over 20 years.
How long have you worked at code enforcement?
18 years in the city, 15 years as a court officer.
Okay, ma'am.
In the department, I would say 8 years.
Okay. And how about you, sir, on the end?
21 years.
Okay, 21 years. Okay. So, I mean, you're familiar with guys like Trey Black, Lonnie. I mean, I know these guys. They're good guys. I'm not going to sit here and say bad things about them. They're good guys. But I'm sure if they were here, they'd back me instead of you.
So I was going to save this for last, but I mean, and if there's anybody else that has a question, please, you know, I don't want to, I will save this one because this is the bomb right here. And I invite anybody, when I bring this topic up, if you want to come see this, you are more than welcome. I have it right here. I will show it to you. I've shown this video to multiple commissioners. I showed this video to Mr. Peters. What I have here, folks, in my possession is a video that was taken by code enforcement of code enforcement executing an unlawful criminal search warrant, drilling the lock out of an occupied home. I want you to let that sink in. Drilling the lock out of an occupied home. They were going to a now disgraced judge, Shirley Green, who's no longer on the bench, and they were getting these unlawful criminal search warrants. The only thing that they can do is legally is get an administrative warrant. That takes about 90 days for that entire process to take place. They were going and getting Shirley Green to sign off on these unlawful warrants. Now, I put in a records request because I knew that there were about 7 or 8 of these. I put in records requests for all the videos, twice. One of them was actually in federal court at the time, so it was evidence in a federal case. Both times, what the results I got back from the clerk of the city clerk was, there are no records to give you. No records exist. I put the request in because I knew the records had been destroyed. I already had inside information that the records had been destroyed. So I bring this to John Peters. He gets told, first off, oh, no. It wasn't code enforcement that made the video, it was the sheriff's department. And then I was able to prove in the video that Heather Murray from Code Enforcement was the one holding the camera. She walks past a mirror in a hallway holding the camera. Yet nothing has been done. Richard Lovett, you were in on this. Trey Black was in on this before he left. All these people that were going and getting unlawful search warrants. And right here, you can see on this video, they have a locksmith drilling the lock out of an occupied home. Now, they've stopped doing this since Shirley Green stepped down from the bench. But this was going on in your city, and this could be you. What do you have to say about that? Because this is yet to be addressed, and we're going on, what, 5-6 months now since I brought this to the city's attention. This video was evidence in a federal lawsuit, and it got destroyed by the city.
So your question was, what am I doing about it?
Yeah.
I believe you've already done what you need to do about it. It's gone to the city manager, it's gone to the city attorney and city clerk. You know, if he wants to bring me in for advice and looking at it, I'll be glad to look at it, but that's not any part of what I'm looking at.
So essentially, the people that were going and unlawfully obtaining from a disgraced judge criminal search warrants to enter occupied homes, some of these people are still employed by the city at this time. These are criminal acts. So why don't we just let the community know that, yes, we are employing criminals to be the people who go out here and want you to comply. How many times did you hear that word, comply? You have to comply. They don't have to comply. They don't have to comply with the law. You have to comply. You have to comply. Everybody in here, they want you to comply, but when it comes to the law, they think they're above it. What are we going to do about this as a community?
Any other questions? Thank you.
I'm going to ask questions, I won't keep it specific to this situation, but just again, so I can have a general understanding. So again, I've been fortunate where I haven't had any interactions with code enforcement. Hope that continues after this. What is, like, does code enforcement have, what are the authority, what is the authority that code enforcement have when it comes to going on residents' private properties, entering their private residences? Because that did kind of, I mean, again, understanding that
Richard,
I don't know the full story, but the fact that code enforcement could go into my private residence.
Answer that as well as animal control.
Okay. We have the right to go up to the front door and leave the thing as per the front door doctrine. So that's what we try and do. If there's a gate or something and there's no trespassing, then we'll go ahead and we'll tag the gate and do it from there. So, and as per animal control?
So animal control, we can get a warrant, correct?
Yes, animal control, we can get a warrant. That question has been asked several times. We can get a warrant. The state attorney's office has agreed we can get a warrant, and there's nothing illegal about it.
And I would imagine that's because that's the scope of people could be hoarding animals.
Well, that, animal cruelty, I mean, you've seen it on the news.
Okay. So can do we know when this incident occurred?
I don't know, Richard, are you at liberty to give a thumbnail sketch?
I don't know the exact year right off the top of my head.
Okay.
But I can tell you this, I think we took 132 cats out of that resident.
That's not true. I've got all the documentation from the wall, so I know exactly how many cats were in there. So
again, broad terms, big picture. Because I think you got that under control, you're handling that. But for outside of animal control, for code enforcement purposes, you can go up to my front door, but you can't enter my front door. Whether, I mean, unless I'm sure, like I say, hey, come in, have a cup of coffee or something, that's different. But
no, ma'am, not unless you invite us in.
All right. What about if I've got locked gates on my property?
No, we're not going to go past your locked gates.
All right, thank you. Thanks for clarifying that.
So
We have a lady in the back.
I just want to clarify something, that there's an 11th Circuit Court case that says you cannot violate the curtilage, because another thing you've been doing is people back their car up against their garage. You make up something so you can go up and unlawfully put a door hanger on their door, which is a violation of the curtilage, which the 11th Circuit said you cannot do, a case out of Miami, so that you can see whether that tag on that car is any good. So don't sit here and lie to these people. And I'm going to also, again, I'm going to mention that the Florida statute is very clear. The sheriff's department, a duly authorized person of a municipal police department, or the state attorney's office may seek a criminal search warrant. Code enforcement may not do it on their own. You do not have that statutory authority. You can't take it under home rule. You can't take it under ordinance. You did not have the sheriff's department or the state attorney's office in any of these cases, because I've got all the documents. You and Trey Black went and did it yourselves. And I'd also like to mention one other thing I forgot in this case was a couple days before this warrant was executed, Richard Lovett was peeking in the window of the house while the woman was taking a shower. And I've got a neighbor that caught him.
Please, sir, let's not do that. You're being disruptive again, please.
I don't think that letting people know the truth about what's going on in their city is disruptive. You might find it disruptive because you want this rah-rah session about how great you are. I can also read another part of your contract about how you're supposed to be looking into very particular complaints that were filed against a code enforcement supervisor. How's that going? Where are we at on that?
Sir, this is a different meeting. I'd be glad to talk to you offline about where that was.
So you don't want these people to know that it says right here in your contract, and I can read verbatim.
And so can they.
Yeah. We can all, and I've got your contract. I'm happy to show it to all of them, that part of what you're supposed to be doing, begin and complete with recommending an investigation of complaints from several female employees regarding a supervisor in the code division. Can you please give us an update on that?
It's ongoing, but I am looking into that. Ma'am, Wendy, can you get the lady in the back who's been asking?
It's because we're going to rebroadcast it, so we need to record your. Okay. Okay.
Wendy, over here.
She still has a question.
Okay.
You can hear me, I'm allowed to. Okay, one of the things that my concern is, I know when I moved in the area, the reason why I moved in this area because of the no home association, owners association, that you can paint your house the color you want to, even though I may not agree with all those, but it's your house. You should be able to paint your house Pepto-Bismol pink if you choose to, right? So my concern is I just don't want us to be, I know certain counties, they have like a HOA in the ordinance. You know what I'm saying? For instance, I was told Flagler County, they have it in the ordinance where you can't. It's already in the ordinance where it's kind of like a homeowner association. That's the only thing that my concern is, that we don't, take the properties. Now, I feel that if you running a auto mechanic business out of your garage and you got cars stacked up in your yard fixed, then I feel like that should be a code violation. Because that should be done, in the proper commercial type setting, right? But I just say, for us Deltona, that we just don't make it where that the enforcement is so strict that we can't paint our houses the colors that we want to. But that picture that you're showing, I know where that area is. And I know that the person is now cleaning that area, I think they were doing like a junkyard or something in the area. do know, but if it's not that picture, it's another house that had like a lot of stuff around it, and I do see that it is being cleared.
So yes, so you are correct, ma'am, that, and Commissioner Sosa is right here. The commission does not legislate the color of your house or an HOA. That's why some people move into one and some people don't. Point well taken. And yes, if there's a business running out of a residence, we have clear guidance on that. And you're right, running a mechanic place out of your residential garage is not proper use of your residence, and we address that. Wendy over here.
Hello, my name is Chris Anderson. Just got a couple questions I need clarified. I'm reading this from this. 6618E. Can you explain that to me? Oh yeah, okay. You didn't have. I got one here.
And Mr. Anderson, after, if you can come see me, I want to show you something on one of your wonderful suggestions last time that we're already working on.
Okay, so the section that the gentleman mentioned is section 6618E, improper parking in the front yard.
Yes, sir.
Corrective action would be parking on approved driveway or driveway surface or behind the face of the house, the side or the rear yard.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, the rule also, it's behind the front face of the house in the backyard, a maximum of 2 vehicles are allowed.
Oh, okay. Thank you. With section, let's see, 6619, would you explain that to me?
6619, I'm thinking about the RV, would that be the RV, boat, and trailers?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now, with the one covering for the one we just mentioned, 6618E, is when it comes to cars. Cars. Now,
different than RVs and boats?
Yes, sir. It's a different category for that one. Now, with the improper parking of the RVs, trailers, and boats, they are required to be parked behind the front face of the house, as long as it fits.
Tell them about the trailer on the driveway.
So, properly stored, what does that mean, properly? Who decides what's properly stored? If I have an RV, a boat, and because I own 3 cars, I got my car in the backyard, that's 3 vehicles, right? Is that legal? Is that right? I don't.
Properly stored means just an addition, like if you're going to keep it in your garage, or when it comes to storage, it has to be like in the garage. So it's giving you or properly stored. As far as
So
the
I'm up
boat.
the creek if I, excuse me, sir, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. You go ahead.
I'm up the creek if I have a boat,
No.
car.
You can park the boat in the backyard, behind the front face of the house, on the side or in the rear yard. You're allowed 2 vehicles back there.
2?
2, yes, sir.
Now, am I right, RVs and boats aren't considered vehicles?
They are considered vehicles.
They are considered
per our definition.
So if I have a car in my 1-car garage and I have another vehicle in my driveway and my kid drives a car, he would have to park that car next to the house, correct?
No, he can drive, if I'm understanding you correctly. You got one in the carport, one on the driveway. That's not a problem. If your kid comes there and he wants to park on the side of the driveway, then he would have to be on an approved driveway surface or make what we call a driveway extension. It could be gravel, marl, mulch, or something that's perfect for water.
So that is more, how many vehicles is that total if I got a boat, RV, and 3 vehicles, or 2 vehicles exposed to the
boat, RV, 2 vehicles. That's 4 vehicles there.
So am I in code?
If you have them all parked properly,
But I can see 2 here, only 2.
That's behind the front face of the house or in the side and the rear. Let's just say you can have 2 in the backyard and the side yard, and then you could have however many will fit on your driveway, as long as they're operable.
And then who decides if it's properly stored?
Well, properly stored is if the one, like you said, was in the carport, that's properly stored.
Okay. So with 6618, which I had a question on that.
Okay. I don't know what the question is.
Maximum of 2 vehicles may these park inside or rear yard?
Yeah, that's just what.
It's very simple. Just reduce the amount of vehicles you own. That's what it says right here. I just get rid of what I can't have it. I have to reduce it.
No, sir. It's stating that you could have a maximum of 2 vehicles behind the front face or the side and the rear yard.
But if I own more than that, what do?
You park them on the driveway.
And then what I do if I can't park my driveway? Let's say I live in
You could put
a development like that, or
Because mulch changes.
mulch. You can put mulch down.
Yes, sir. And it has to be properly bordered.
So.
Hang on, sir. This is a specific case. Can we have him talk to you all after the meeting regarding a specific case?
Sure.
Okay, and one other thing, I'm not here to badger anybody. I just have these questions because when I moved into the city of Deltona, I wasn't aware of this, okay? I wasn't aware of this until one day I got up and there was this yellow sticker here, yellow sticker there, and I'm like, what is this all about, I had no idea. I was not in compliance. And the city needs to educate the people of Deltona about your compliances, which I don't agree with all of them, because we're putting homes up right now on small lots, and I guess everybody's foreseen this before they approve the development that we're doing now. Everybody foreseen this problem. Now how are we going to deal with it? I have no idea. That's all your case.
Sir,
But anyways, I'm sorry. You want the microphone? I'll give you that back because I got one of them.
I will. I'll get it back to you. You brought up a very good point about when people move into the city. Back in the old days, we used to have a lot of communities had what we call welcome wagon, where they would give you information about the city. One of the common threads, except for the people who live in Del North, is most people when they move into the city, they get the water meter in their name. So we're working on putting a brochure together so that when you open up an account with Deltona Water, you will receive information that will include frequently asked questions, and one of them will be addressing the parking situation.
I find people that move here, they feel, they got their own home, they're able to afford it, and they think they're in the country. They're not in the country. It's almost like a home association where it's being run like that. There's guidelines, but in home associations, the people of that area decide who governs, and they make their rules, and they have to be followed. They're governed by within themselves, the home association. This is a little different. We're being governed by the city of Deltona. But the other thing I had...
In which the commission sets the policy that we enforce, yes.
If yard waste, and how's that handled? If somebody has to remove, you're saying you got to remove...
Yeah, Richard, you want to handle yard waste?
On yard waste?
Well, sir, do you have a contractor who does that?
We have the contractors with Waste Pro to pick up all the yard waste.
What?
With Waste Pro?
So what is the agreement on the pricing? Is that a bid?
It's supposed to be bundled or contained somehow so that way they can easily pick it up. It's supposed to be in 4-foot sections, bundled, tied up, or inside of a garbage can so that way
It's a bid process, yes, sir.
Okay.
And there's a contract. Mr. Peters, how long is our contract with Waste Pro? 3 to 5 years, and then it'll go back out to bid.
Lawn cutting lawns. Well, how's that? Waste Pro?
No, we have an independent contractor with the city that it's 1 to 3 years, depending upon what the contract is. So you're talking about abatement now, people that don't cut their lawns?
I'm just trying to get some information, sir. That's all.
So that's a question then, right? How do we handle abatements?
Well, how would you?
Okay. Go ahead, Danny.
We show that process. The first notice we leave is the door hanger. We're hoping that compliance is after the 7 days. If it doesn't happen, that's when we prepare the abatement notice. The abatement notice, same as the notice of violation, but with the abatement notice, it allows us, the city, to hire a contractor if it's still in violation after the 10 days. So let's just say after the 10 days, we leave that abatement notice. We also send that notice certified mail to the property owner that's listed with property appraisers. And if it's not in compliance, we prepare a package. That way we get we hire a contractor to go out there and abate the property, cut the lawn to come into compliance.
What confuses me, if they do not comply, what happens?
Well,
Under the final step, the magistrate.
right. Well, with the abatement, we don't want to wait that long and make, this property be a nuisance, and that's why we have this abatement process, and it's only for lawns.
Do you have a ride-along program that a person from Deltona could ride along with your inspectors just to get a feel of what your job is like during the day? I know the police department offers that. Do you have that program?
We currently do not, but once again, a great suggestion. We will look at it. It'll have to be run up the chain to legal, risk management, but that is a great suggestion.
And the only other thing I have to say is that I spent 4 hours the other day. I was just looking at your code enforcement vehicle. I didn't, I just randomly selected one. And I saw him sitting on the side of the road under a shade tree. And then from there, he moved. And he went down the street, made a left, and he slowly drove by a house that was not compliant. Didn't stop, nothing, just drove by, went to the corner, made a left and stopped, and then stayed there for a few minutes, and then drove, and went to another house I saw that wasn't compliant, did not stop, just kept cruising, So I don't get this, because aren't they like, shouldn't they just stop and say, hey, what's going on? Why aren't you cleaning your yard? Or why you got that vehicle and you're still parking? I didn't see code enforcement working.
Right, so there's so many reasons why that may have happened. I can give you reasons why they would have been checking on houses that they're already non-compliant to update their cases. But if you give us the address that you were at, we will track the officer and we'll give you a detail of what he was doing at that time.
I'm not here to point people out.
No, you're right, but we want them all working
that way. But I just don't understand how code enforcement is working. I'm puzzled.
Okay.
And thank you. And,
no, thank you for your comments.
Should be with you later or someone?
Yeah, just after this, come to me. I want to show you something.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your help. Anybody want the mic?
My name's Stephanie Cox. I've lived in Deltona 40-plus years. I've been a homeowner for 38 of those. I've had a couple encounters with code enforcement through that process, whether it be personally or through my real estate office. But what I would like to see with our code enforcement is I see our city just becoming a dump. And I would like to really see code enforcement be that more proactive. I've always heard, just call us up with the address. Well, I got my job to do too. So I want to know what you're going to do to take care of that, because my own area has went down the tubes. I mean, it used to be a great area. It's pitiful now. I mean, one yard has 11 cars in it. Now, that's a little much. And I don't want an HOA, but you know what? Things like that make me want to. When I see semi-trailers out my front window, looking across the street, these are not good signs. So I would like to know what you're going to do to eliminate it. Like he said, as you're driving by, there has to be a system that you can put in force, maybe not for that moment, but to eventually get back to.
Right. So thank you very much. You're on one side of the spectrum that I heard today, and there's several others on the other side of the spectrum that I've heard here today, and we're trying to meet everybody in the middle with best practices. But to answer your question specifically, each squad, there's two squads of code enforcement officers. They have somebody designated proactive. That's one officer for the entire city, 7 days a week. We are trying to increase that because this is a city of over 94,000 residents. So we're trying to prove our case to the city manager on what we need, not what we want. There's a difference, wants and needs. We're just working on our needs. And We are also working on best practices of sweeps. So they did sweeps before I got here a couple months ago. Each district, they hit sweeps and went through, and which is proactive. We're going to do it a little bit more best practice way is the way to look at it. We're going to do it more item-centric. So during the summer, we need to concentrate, as Mr. Ron pointed out, on lawns and debris in the yards. During the winter, we can concentrate on other things. So we are in the process of implementing best practices. So thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
My question goes back to the driveway situation. There are parts of Deltona that have sidewalks through their neighborhoods, parts of them that have no sidewalks, and parts of them that have a couple houses with sidewalks started here, then down the road further, there's a sidewalk started here. So it's unfinished sidewalks throughout the neighborhood. And I'm hearing you say that if you need to extend your driveway, it's permissible to use rock or mulch. But I've also been told that in doing so, that is considered an improvement to your driveway, and therefore you will be required to pay for your stretch of the sidewalk in front of your house. That's how the sidewalks are being put in, is via the homeowner when they implement some type of what is deemed an improvement. So what I would like to know is this true, and then what?
I'll turn that over to Mr. Peters or Mr. Paradise.
No, that's not true. Ron, do you want to answer? You want me to? Go ahead. Okay. As part of new home construction, the contractor is required to put sidewalks in front of the houses. Sometimes it looks rather stupid when you see two houses with sidewalk and nobody else. But the purpose of that is when and if the city ever comes back in and puts sidewalks in the neighborhood, that's two lots that will not have to be done. Right now, our emphasis is what we call Sidewalks to School program that through the Transportation Planning Organization. We get money from the state to put those sidewalks in, and we cost share. So we get more sidewalks in for a city investment than we would otherwise. Eventually, we will start putting sidewalks in 100% out of city funds. Now, that being said, there is the option that if a neighborhood wants to move it quicker, they can create an improvement district. This is something that they would agree to. Right now, we have streetlight improvement districts where the resident pays in their Avalon taxes additional money to pay for the streetlights in the neighborhood. Similarly, you could do the same thing if you had a neighborhood that really wanted to have sidewalks in that. You could create, the neighborhood could ask the commission to create an improvement district, and in that case, you would be paying in your taxes over a period of time for the sidewalk construction. That's the only case that I can think of where you would be asked to pay for it.
Thank you so much.
Wendy, all the way in the back, and then we'll come up front.
Hi, I just wanted to ask a question. Do you guys have like a database where we can get emails for our residents? Is there any way we can create something like that? The gentleman who was talking about putting it with the water bill, you know, most people get the water bill, but a lot of us do online payments, right? You know, we don't have it. I was just thinking maybe, you know, if it's not a lot on the city, because the only reason I found out about this meeting was because of Mr. Sosa. I'm Phyllis. Hey, Phyllis. Yeah, that's the only reason I found out. So, like a person who want to be more active in the community, how will we find out about these type of town halls? You know what I'm trying to say? Are we up to date for us data? You know, collecting data. I mean, this may sound strange to you guys, but we need to have the data on our community so we can push it out, these rules. Because how would you know you violating something that you don't even know exists? You know what I'm saying? So the only thing we can do is we have to get the information 92, how many you say, 1,000 residents. I know everybody might not have internet. Maybe we could do mailings, flyers, you know, just with these, you know, what you guys just posted here. You know, maybe you guys can send us this PowerPoint presentation. I don't know, but we, you know, we need to be more informed, and then if we inform, then those things might not happen. You know, like she was saying with the 11 cars in the families, probably, you know, people who had to come back home. And, you know, most residents have 2 or 3 vehicles. You know, that's basically just how it is a lot of times. So, you know, most residents may have 2 cars and a truck. You know, but how would a person know that they need to put the mulch on the side? You know what I'm trying to say? How would we know? So how you guys, I guess my question is, how are you guys getting the information to the residents?
So
Right.
So thank you for that. And part of the best practices, and I keep hitting that phrase, but is to put information on the website. The city of Deltona has wonderful resources, whether it's Deltona TV or it is the Deltona website through communications. And we're in the process now of putting out most asked questions, giving the answers, that you have a resource to go to. And we have such a wonderful video TV portion of this, and we've already spoken with the communications director that we need to put informational videos out, and based on the 6 meetings I've been to, and several great questions that I don't have a definitive answer, we're going to get to the bottom of it, and we're going to put out a video on just what to do with your driveway. And we're going to try to start with parking. And I will tell you right now, we're not going to tackle it and kill it and win it, but we're going to at least put out what's in the ordinances and how it is there. And then with you, the residents, with great suggestions, we're going to bring it back in, we'll shake it back up, and once again, hopefully put out another great product. But this is your city, and although it may sound like a couple of us are going back and forth, I'm listening. And I do want to get to the bottom of that because I live in a house as well. Yes, ma'am, again. Yes.
Me personally, suppose the people don't look at the website. The first time I've been in this community 16 years, right? Only looked at the website one time, and that was to fill out an application for something, right? I've been here like almost 16 years. We need to get mailings. You know, everybody goes to their mailbox. So what I'm saying is, like, you know how you guys had the PowerPoint or whatever? You don't have to do the whole PowerPoint, but just do some of the basic regulations that appear to be violated a lot. And I'm thinking, I don't know, I'm new to these meetings, but I'm thinking that it's being violated because they just don't know.
So that brings...
One more thing, the reason why I know I moved here versus Orlando and other places, because, you know, we have a choice where we live. And I'm telling you, the main reason I moved, because when I was looking for a home, everybody had these homeowners associations. And I was telling Mr. Sosa, I own a food trailer, right? At the time, I was really active in working my food trailer. And the home associations was telling us we have to put our food trailer in the storage. So I'm saying, why would I pay for a mortgage and I can't put my food trailer, you know what I'm trying to say, you know, in my yard? It just didn't make sense to me. I just don't want nobody to have that kind of control over me, to tell me that I can't put this purchase that I made in my yard. So what I'm saying is we just need a better communication line where all 92 residents, right, not a few who just get tickets to come to meetings, but everybody, we have to, because everybody don't have internet, right? So everybody cannot go to the website, you know, to see, you know, the postings on the website, so we have to take that in mind, but we all, you know, the postal service, and if we can kind of get those mailings, I think we'll probably have that whole violation.
And thank you for that, those comments. But I'll just point out a couple of things. One, the person up here mentioned the brochure. We are working on a brochure, so when your code enforcement officer gets out there and sees the violation or sees a potential problem, they're able to give you that brochure, which is a resource. Or, and what we're doing, you hit the keyword communication. We are educating our officers, your officers, to be better communicators, so when they go out there and they're giving you that courtesy violation, they are more well-informed on how you can resolve that issue, and whether it be through one of the organizations or what you need to do to resolve that issue. So we have a great staff right now, but communication and becoming more well-informed on what they're enforcing out there is a two-prong that we're looking at.
Well, okay, let you have on there proactive. What I was saying is if we are more proactive,
Yes.
we wouldn't have the code enforcement issues.
That's part of it, yes.
People would know that, hey, this is a violation, I can't do this.
Yes.
So I'm saying that we have to find some kind of way that we can reach all 92,000 residents proactively to let them know what is the violation code and what's not. You know what I'm saying?
And through the water bill is one of the ways we will look at.
Exactly.
Whether it's, we can't really stick anything, that thick in there, but if we can direct them to the right website or to call us, and we can come out and educate them, kind of like in this format. Yes. Thank you.
How we can get this information
Yes.
to all of the residents, because we can't assume that everybody has the internet.
Yes.
Or even a TV.
There was a time in Deltona, I'm just surprised I never seen any of these people before, really. I mean, I guess maybe I'm just lucky. But anyway, there was a time in Deltona when code enforcement was used as like a military force. I mean, you had the mayor, you had the man who run the, I had confrontations with him. I'll give you his first name. His name was Dale. But anyway,
Dale Baker.
They would point. And I've had code enforcement officers back years ago tell me, yeah, well, we had to go after him. He had an argument with John. Dale don't like him. I mean, I'm not making this stuff up. I mean, I'm sure you heard it before. Mr. Peters, Albert Bryan, 92 times they were at his house. You know Albert, he's an honest guy. But anyway, I mean, people resent code enforcement. I mean, this is something, this is etched in the history of Deltona.
So that's what I came walking into, but you have new commissioners with fresh eyes. You have a new city manager who's promised to be transparent. And now I'm going to say you have well-certified, well-educated supervisors up here. And if there needs to be changes, which I'm hearing from you there needs to be, it's happening right now. So I don't know what happened before I got here, but I know with new commissioners, new city manager, new perspective, hopefully we can leave the past in the past and you'll see great things.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what the conflict is. I mean, some of these citizens have been here for many years and they have resentment towards code enforcement. To me, I have none. I'll tell you the truth. I have none. But I mean, this is something that is deep rooted. And another thing we got to remember about Deltona, there's a lot of poverty in Deltona. There's a lot of food lines. There's a lot of people that are not doing good. I mean, you see people begging for money. Homeless was a big thing in Deltona. Finally, it started to weed itself out. I mean, this is like, to me, from where I come from, this is like Tobacco Road. To me, this is a new thing, you know. When I came in 1988, we seen a house for $48,000, 3 bedrooms, cathedral ceiling, 2-car garage. We thought it was a steal. Now, when you complain about something here, they tell you, well, why don't you move? I mean, it's ridiculous. And one other thing, let's get behind and support our next mayor, David Sosa. Gotta go. Gotta go.
Now, Mike, and I promise you that my friend Richard and I did not plan this, but my last question that I'm going to put out there is, exactly that. Is code enforcement still being used as a retaliation force? And I'm going to give an example of that. So I have another very good friend that is a plumber. And she is a very by the book, very follow the codes, follow the ordinance, just very by the book as far as contracting goes. And she's been very outspoken about a lot of things, unlicensed contractors, but her big one was she knew very well that when the center opened, that they were in there preparing and serving food without the proper licensing. So she went into the center with her cell phone and she recorded and she caught them. Well, they tried to unlawfully trespass her from the center. That didn't work out very well. Catron versus St. Petersburg, 11th Circuit. And that was a big black eye for the city. There were multiple articles written about her in local newspapers. And the city had to literally, with my help, had to write her an apology, a written apology. Now, let's fast forward past the apology. Again, she's a very good friend of mine. So she comes and visits. I live on a main road. She comes and parks her plumbing van in my driveway. She hangs out. She'll come spend the afternoon after she's done for the day or whatever. So one day, I'm minding my own business. I'm sitting in my house and knock at the door, go to the door, and it's little Dennis Muse, poor little guy. I felt so bad for him because this giant comes to the door. What do you want? I'm here about unpermitted plumbing. Unpermitted plumbing. You're here, you want to talk to me about, and I got all this on video. I recorded this. You want to talk to me about unpermitted plumbing. Okay, what makes you believe that there was unpermitted plumbing? What kind of plumbing are we talking about? I don't know. Maybe it was a water line, a main line. Okay, so you think that there might have been a main line that was being worked on. Who sent you? Well, I don't know. You don't know who sent you. Did someone call and complain? No, nobody called and complained. Okay. So you're knocking on my door. You are asking me about unlicensed plumbing because a friend of mine who happens to be a plumber comes and visits me quite often in her plumbing van. And nobody sent you here that you know of. You can't tell me who sent you here, and nobody called and complained, but yet you're at my door. And it was at that point I told him that if you ever knock on my door again without a warrant, we're going to have a really big issue because I will treat you as a hostile invader. So, yes, code enforcement has been, just as Richard said, I have been a victim of it myself. Victim. I will use that word victim because my friend came to visit me and still does on multiple occasions. My friend who caught the city in the act of serving and preparing food in a kitchen that had not yet been licensed, that, by the way, ended up with several code violations from the state when they came in and looked, was preparing and serving food to these good citizens. She brought it to light. She made it known. And they went after her with everything they had. And I helped her fight back. And two long-form videos and a lot of communication with the State Department. I went all the way to the Department of State. I went to the governor's office. And the city ended up having to issue her a written apology. But that did not stop them from coming to my door to ask me about unpermitted plumbing because my friend was parked in my driveway. So, again, I will ask, are you still using these people as a retaliation force against the people who speak out? They've done it against Brandy White. They've come and harassed her. She's another person who speaks out. He brought up Elbert Bryant 92 times. We all know that Elbert Bryant is very outspoken because he cares about this community. I'm here because I care about the rule of law and the Constitution. And I care about this community. And I care about the fact that I want to see this community, all these things up here on the wall right here, I want to see all those abided by. and I want to see this done in a constitutional manner under rule of law.
So thank you for that. All I can answer is, since Mr. Peters has been here, which is January, mid-January, I have not seen what you're inferring to.
And one last thing, as far as people who are elderly, and I've seen these, because I've attended almost all these meetings with the exception of a couple, there have been elderly people that have talked about, you know, I can't get out and mow my grass, you know, especially in the rainy season. I just can't do it. When you decide that you're going to, whatever these mailers that you're going to put out or whatever it is you're going to do, can you please add in there that those elderly people do have a right under Title II of the ADA? They do have a right to come to the city and ask for an accommodation on anything with a time constraint. So if they need a little bit longer to get their grass mowed. Now, my neighbor, I had a neighbor that was he was a retired vet. He was blind. He couldn't get out and mow his grass. I mowed his grass for him because that's what we should do as neighbors. We take care of each other. Retired veteran, blind guy, and both him and his wife were elderly. I mowed his grass for him because I didn't want code enforcement coming and knocking on his door and harassing him, because he wasn't able to do it and his son couldn't get there as often as it needed to be done. But everybody doesn't have a neighbor like that. So, can you please put in this mailer that they do have a right under federal law to come and ask for an accommodation for anything that has a time constraint, so that if they cannot do it because of their age or any disability, that they cannot be violated.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, ma'am?
Are you not going to answer that question?
We will look. That's a great suggestion. We will look at it.
It's a federal law. Can you please point out the federal law to the community, that they have a right under federal law to seek an accommodation?
So what I'll promise you is that we will put in there that we will help them get through it if they cannot do it on their own.
But you will not cite the federal law that they fall under and that you have to abide by.
No,
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you. And I'm glad this is on the record.
Behind you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's all take a deep cleansing breath. So looking forward, right? Some suggestions that I have that you all may have heard in other meetings is, I've been in Deltona for a little while, and in some other states that I've lived in, they've had, like, we'll just call them like special cleanup pickups, where a couple times a year, right, there's a task force that comes out, you put it at your curb, we're going to take it, regardless of kind of what it is, almost like your free pass almost for the year. I'd love to see something like that.
We call Amnesty Day, and we've had a couple in the past, and we've discussed having a couple in the future. Once again, it comes to communication and getting out there, like the lady in the back said. So we need to do a better job of getting it out to the residents, that on such and such a day will be in this district as we rotate around. But we do have that with Waste Pro now.
And I think it's reciprocal, right? And I think then we, in turn, as residents, need to do our job and take advantage of that. So I'd also like to bring up storm season, right? So last year, or the last few years, we had a couple of significant storms. Thankfully, everything worked out, but they were coming our way. And I sit here at the like the special emergency meetings where people are bringing up, oh, well, so-and-so's got this on the curb and this is over here. But really, at that point, it's kind of too late to do anything to get the solid waste guys out, get code enforcement out, to do anything about that. So if there's, I heard you say a few times, being more proactive. If there's a way to be more proactive during storm season with doing maybe some sweeps and maybe, again, not as punitive, not as a punishment, but as a, hey, do you know there's a storm coming? You might want to take down these, 5 umbrellas you have sticking in the front of your yard, And then public dumpsters. Like, I know there's the transfer station in DeLand, and maybe there's another one closer by I don't know about, but I don't know that there are any public dumpsters or any type of facilities here local. And I just think, again, as our community grows, 92,000+ residents, there's a lot of garbage in this city. And maybe just making it a little easier for people to proactively dispose of it would be helpful.
Thank you. Go ahead. I'm trying to keep this to 90 minutes. I know I've already gone by that. I'd like to let Commissioner Sosa close. I'm trying to be respectful of everybody's time. Thank you once again for coming, but no, go ahead, sir. If you have a question, go ahead.
Well, I talked to people in the neighborhood and area of Deltona, and I found that they're all asking the question on with all the development that recently occurred with Amazon, hospitals,
right,
everything like that. How much money are they actually putting into our tax base right now? How much money is coming in from those businesses? I don't know if that's a question for our manager or you.
That would be, yeah, that would be the manager.
So is there money coming into the city from all these Amazon, the hospital, all that improvement in the I-4 area? How much money is coming in? Because I see 3 supervisors, and what I see up there is you probably don't have enough staff to do code enforcement. And if you hire more people and more trucks, then that means we're going to get a tax increase. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I believe it's going to happen. So how much money is coming from all these businesses?
The primary one is Amazon.
Thank you.
And the agreement on Amazon is the first 3 years will not result in any taxes. The 4th and 5th year will be 50% of the Avalon taxes, and then after 5 years, it would be 100%. When we did the agreement, the anticipated number was about $1 million a year in taxes coming from the Amazon.
5 years?
After 5 years.
With the hospital?
Hospital, I'm not sure.
So you have 2 hospitals?
Some of it's exempt, it's a nonprofit, but there are some elements that will be taxable.
Right.
So are the residents looking at an increase in taxes for hiring more people and staff?
My goal, we're working on the budget right now. My goal is to do all of it without raising the taxes.
Oh, that's a reasonable answer. That's a good answer. Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Sosa?
Mr. O'Grady, I have several questions I'd like to ask. I mean, if anybody doesn't mind staying, I have some questions I would like to ask. If you want to go back to slide 1, we'll start with slide 1. When we're talking about compliance with local ordinances, I want to know, this is probably not a question you would be able to answer, maybe Mr. Peters can, or Mr. Paradise. When was the last time the Ordinance Review Board met?
The last time the Ordinance Review Committee was in probably February of 2020 before COVID hit.
February 2020?
Yeah, don't hold me to that month, but it was
approximately.
Yeah, it was right before COVID hit.
We're about a year and a half in since they've met. Also, for anybody who wants to see changes, whether you agree with the ordinances, you do not agree with the ordinances, there is an opening, I believe, on the ordinance board right now. Is that true, sir?
I believe there is, yeah. And I think there's going to be some other openings on that.
Coming up. So if you would like to be part of your voice of your community, please apply for one of the boards.
And, sir?
Yes.
In addition, we're having a rare board for this year, and that is charter review. So far, we have gotten 6 applicants for a 5-person board. Monday night, I will suggest to the commission that we put a hard deadline for the end of May for people to put their applications in. So if you are interested in being part of the city constitution, which is the charter, I strongly encourage you to go online and fill out an application to be part of the charter review process.
Okay, can we go to staffing history next? That one right there. Okay, now I'm looking at that, and what I've heard here today is we are short-staffed in code enforcement. Now, I'm looking at those numbers, and I did an average of how many staff per how many estimated residents. Right now, with the exception of years 97 and 2000, because you said those all 3 departments did not fall under one. My question is, how many staff members were there in solid waste and how many staff members were in animal control in 1997 and 2000?
Or more?
If my memory serves me correct, we had, what was it, one or two animal control? 2 solid waste, and we had for animal control was one in 97? You wanted the years of 1997?
Not 90. Well, yeah. What you have here for 97 and 2000, where I believe Mr. Lovett said that code enforcement, all 3 processes of code enforcement fell under in 2008. So prior to that, how many staff members took care of solid waste and how many members took care of animal control?
So if you go by recommended staffing for animal control, it's 1 officer for every 10 to 15,000 citizens.
Richard, I think the question is back in 1997.
In 97, I do not know. I was not here in 2000 when I was here. There was a staff, including office staff, of 5 animal control officers.
Separate from what's up there.
Separate from what.
And then solid waste separate from what up there.
Right. Solid waste, there was 2. 2, we had
so
an
that's
office
a
staff
total of
person
seven separate personnel.
Okay.
So let's go by 2000. So that's a total of 9 if we were to put them all together.
Put them all together. Because when I add those numbers up and then I divide them by the number of residents, number of staff, I'm coming out with a number of 11 3/4 staff per 1,000 or per 8,000, because if that's what we're based off of, that's what the numbers I come up with is 11 3/4 staff members, not 16, not 22. And I believe when we do this, getting to what we were talking about earlier, sending animal control to the county, I was under the impression we were looking into that. If we retain animal control, how many more vehicles are we going to need and how many more staff members are we going to need, and is it really going to be cost effective for the city?
And that's part of what I'll be looking at and presenting to Mr. Peters. Right now, just going up the personnel, and I think, we have a budget hearing on Tuesday. So I'll have those numbers after Mr. Peters looks at them after Tuesday. But just going back to your 11, and we can talk offline, your 11 formula was for code enforcement, but then add in the formula for animal control, and then the formula for this population on solid waste, and it is above 16. Just on the past numbers, I come up with 17 for 2020. So just looking at that, we're down 1, but there's formulas out there for best practices. We're not, once again, Commissioner Sosa, it's all needs, nothing wants. They're going to be bare bone, and we're moving it forward that way.
Okay. Well, which takes me to my next question. When we go to top code issues, and I believe this was touched on by a bunch of people. I'm the only person in my house that drives. It's me and my son. I own 9 vehicles just because I like cars. The majority are Mustangs. With the code that we have right now, I have to keep 2 of my cars at my parents' house, and I actually ended up selling 2 because my son didn't like them and he didn't want to drive them. Needless to say. But we do have folks out there that are car enthusiasts, and they do like working on their cars on the weekend, whether they pull it out of their driveway, out of their garage. I mean, I think what we need to do is look at some of the violations, and this goes back to the ordinances. We need to review our ordinances. When was the last time the ordinance were actually reviewed? I believe somebody had brought it up. Our dynamics of Deltona have changed. It is not a retirement community anymore. We are a family community. When my son starts driving, there may be another car in the driveway because I'm not going to let him drive mine. So, that being said, I agree with this gentleman here. What makes mulch a better driving facility or a better parking facility than just the grass? When my son goes off to college, he no longer needs that piece of grass, so my grass grows back. If I got to put rock down or I got to put cement down, That's not replaceable. That's a permanent fixture unless I clean it up. Now, what is one of the biggest issues in Deltona? Flooding. All right, so if our best thing is to just concrete over everything, where's all the water going to go? All we're going to do is contribute to more flooding. So, I mean, I think what we need to do is prioritize what we are looking at as far as violations. I mean, looking at this, I'll tell you the number one complaint I get is animal control. And it's mostly feral cats. We have houses that are, quote, under the TNR, and, they feed them, they do whatever, but once they feed them, they go in the neighbor's yard. They make a mess of the neighbor's yard. I mean, I've gone to a neighbor's house that's next to this here, and me watching, not trying to step in things, is still stepping in things. That's how bad it is. All right, so when we need to prioritize where our code enforcement is being used. I mean, I don't blame anybody up there. This comes from the city manager and the commission as to what the directives are. And they're just following what their orders are. Now, I think we need to prioritize. Maybe I could care less if somebody parks a car in their grass as opposed to having cats that are technically violating the rights of residents that live next to them. So,
and if I can just jump in June, we're going to be talking about animal control, so thank you for the plug to everybody. The commissioners are now setting up their town hall dates for animal control. We're going to start that in June, so please check the website or Deltona TV, and we'll try to get it out as much as possible.
Okay, and then if we go to page 7. I thought back in January we had some issues.
What page?
Page 7. It's the one with the initial enforcement efforts.
Okay. Reactive?
No.
I don't see the number there. Hang on. 1, 2, 3.
One after that.
4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah. Well, that's fine there. It doesn't matter. I thought back in January, code enforcement was not going to be leaving door hangers anymore. They were going to be sending letters. Did that get changed since January?
Yes, that was a COVID protocol. But upon my initial assessment, meeting with Mr. Peters, there was a lot of frustration with residents because if they were getting letters, there was the delay of the mail. Some residents don't check their mail every day, and then all of a sudden they were being pushed into a second violation where the door hanger they would have seen right away. So we went back to that as a convenience for the residents.
Okay. And now my thing is, I think we touched on this a little bit. If there's a no trespassing sign, does code enforcement still go up there and leave the yellow door hanger, or are they going to go ahead and send a letter to that address?
So that, Richard, you want to, it's more of a discretion on, they can post where the trespass sign is, or they can mail a letter. So go ahead.
Yeah, so if there's a fence with a no trespassing sign, then we're going to post it on the fence and leave it there on the fence, the most conspicuous place we can.
Okay, but you won't actually go to the physical door if it's past that?
No, we're not going to go through the gate to go to the front door.
Okay. Well, I guess they would have to hang it to the no trespassing sign if it's at the front of their right of way.
And we will follow up with a letter, but we will still put the hanger or the notice out there.
It still does get mailed out certified too.
All right, thank you, sir. And then getting to the special magistrate. Some of the cases go to the special magistrate, some of them go to the county. What differentiates the two? What criteria do we have that goes county? What criteria do we have stays in the city?
You basically want the difference between with citations and coming into the special magistrate. For instance, an example would be we would use a citation more because faster, more to get compliance for a parking situation. Because, for instance, a parking situation, you can go there. If you set a parking situation up for, say, special magistrate, A parking situation is one that can be fixed. So a lot of times we may approach an individual resident and they'll say, oh, okay, thanks for letting me know, whatever, and then they'll come and move the vehicle right then. So you don't have that whole process at that point where something that can change quickly. We might refer to using a citation as opposed to a special magistrate hearing, which takes a lengthy time because there's a lot of notice has to be sent out, and also it can be extended. So that kind of kind of an example of the two.
So citations mostly for parking then, and you either pay it or...
Well, they're used for animals.
For animals?
Most of them.
Okay.
It's mostly animals.
So my question is, but when you get a notice that you need to go to the special magistrate, what cases are determined between the special magistrate and the county?
Well, one is a civil citation that you would get that goes to the county, and the special magistrate is when we bring you, for example, a permit case. Something that's lengthy, going into a length of time, but something that can be determined or rectified somewhat quickly or obtain compliance faster, we might use a citation. And that's only basically, again, that's going to be for like animals at large, things of that nature.
Okay.
You realize that, right? There's nothing criminal in here. These are the people we have running the show.
And then just on one of the slides, I noticed a discrepancy when we said future of code enforcement. In 2008, you said there were 16 officers, but on the previous slide, it was 22. And then on 2020, you have 12 officers when it was 16. So, I mean, I don't know where the discrepancy on that was.
I think we went over that before, Richard. Was that internal also staff?
So, yeah, that other number includes all office staff.
So the 22 includes all office staff and the 16?
Yeah, they included all our office staff, everybody.
Okay. Now, on these move-outs, that would fall under solid waste, right? Say somebody gets evicted from their house or they're a renter and they decide to move, they get evicted, they leave a ton of trash at the curb, right? That's an issue. That's a safety and that's a health issue, and I completely understand that. Now, where do we stand on our short-term rental agreement or our rental agreement? I think that was part of what you were going to be looking at as well, the rental agreement. And how much time are you going to give the landlord to clean that property up?
So we are looking at several different models, and I believe Mr. Peters has that on the agenda for a discussion item in May, maybe the first or the second commission meeting in May on what direction we want to go. But there's a lot of different models out there. So, you know, how much time you're giving them to clean it out, if they're being charged for not getting rid of the solid waste themselves, if there is a rental ordinance fee, all that is going to be dictated as guidance by the commission, and then we'll go back and, yes, one of my tasks is to look at what other cities, counties have out there, get with our legal, and bring a couple different options for the commission to vote on. Go ahead.
That is on Monday night's agenda. The recommendation is that the commission authorize staff to begin the process with the idea of having an ordinance in place by October 1 and a rental license program to begin in July of 2022. To answer your question, and part of the reason I believe that we need a rental license program is quite often when these people are evicted and they put this stuff out by the road, I often call Waypro and have them pick it up. They charge us for it. If we had a rental license program, that rental license fee would cover that cost of removing that material. Because the last thing I want to have is have somebody get evicted on Thursday night and the next pickup is Thursday morning. To have it sitting out by the road for a week. So it's been a regular thing, and please, people, do not broadcast it. It's been a regular thing that when I receive notice that that has happened, I contact Waypro, they go out there and pick it up. And that is a cost that all the residents of the city are bearing in their Avalon taxes that are a result of a landlord and a tenant situation. That's why I believe that a rental license program is imperative, because we're paying for the cost of those things, not only in the waste stuff, but we have shown that they're twice as likely to have code violations, twice as likely to have crime, and 2.5 times more likely to have drug overdoses. So it's impacting our code enforcement, our waste management, our fire department, and our sheriff department. So, you know, the money that would come in from the rental license would help offset that, so the rest of the residents could hopefully see a reduction in their abnormal impact for that.
Is the city being charged by the cubic yard?
Pardon me?
Would you be charged by the cubic yard or debris removed?
They're charged by the weight, because that's
Just
what
weight?
charge.
Okay, sir. Mr. Sosa?
And just the last thing I want to talk about David, and not David me. David is a tool that is used by code enforcement. How many of you guys know what David is? All right. David is an acronym for Driver and Vehicle Information Database. Okay? That means they plug your license plate in, they get all your personal information. Absolutely. Now, this is not something that's been under our current administration. This was the last MOU I pulled up from the Florida Department of Highway Safety was done under a Dale Baker. Why he did this, I have no idea. This is not a tool that I believe code enforcement needs. I mean, unless you can give me a really good reason why code enforcement needs David, I am totally opposed to this. This just doesn't have your address. It has all your personal information in there. You know, this is a database that has so much information in there that it doesn't need to be done by code enforcement. I don't think there should be any use for it. I pulled up a record of every municipality that used David for code enforcement reasons. And how many counties do we have in Florida? 67? And let's go with Deltona, Volusia County, we have about 20, let's say about 20 municipalities, right? So you do 20 times 70, that's about 1,400 municipalities, give or take a few within Florida. There's only about 20 of them that use this. This is a tool that should be used for law enforcement for criminal activity, not because we want to run somebody's tag. I don't understand. I mean, if code enforcement, if you could please give me the reason why you use David, and investigations don't count, because when you're investigating something, it's something with the property, whether it's a car parked on the property or it's the property itself. You have an address. You could go to a public database through Volusia County and you can tell who owns that property, and that's who you should be citing. I mean, I've tried in my head for the last couple weeks to figure out why code enforcement uses David, and I just cannot come up with a logical explanation.
So we use that to whenever we write a parking ticket, or if we cannot get their information and we're trying to write a citation, we'll run the tag in order to get that information to get that tag. And that is a service that is given to us by the Department of Transportation.
Right. But my question is, you're not writing a parking ticket like because somebody has an expired meter. You're writing a parking ticket because they parked on their grass with no mulch, correct?
No, where it's right-of-way parking, fire lane parking, those kind of issues.
Yeah, that's where I'm going with this. This should be criminal, not civil, okay? That is way too much information for the municipality to have. That belongs to the county, the clerk of the court, and to LEO, period. Now, if you have a car parked on the right-of-way, I mean, do what they do on the highway. Leave a little red sticker. You know, you come back, if it's not done in your 7 days, call VCSO, have it towed. I mean, if that's the way you want to do it. But the last thing I want to see is a handful of individuals within the city to have access to that database. Now, that's something I will be bringing up. Mr. Peters and I have talked about this for weeks now, And I will say with Mr. Peters, January and February, the usage of David was minimal. It was maybe 5 times, 6 times. However, we had a spike in March where it was over 20 times that database was accessed through the city. I mean, I don't understand why the big spike. Now, when I look at the records, because this is all public information, you guys can get it from the state of Florida, the most usage was between years 2013 and 2016. It was almost to where it was abused. And I think between Mr. Peters, I think we need to bring this up at the commission meeting. I don't see any reason why code enforcement should be using David or have access to David. The cost is free. There's no cost for a municipality to use David. There's no cost per search. There's not an annual fee. Basically what it was, Dale Baker, I believe he used to be the acting city manager back in 2009, ended up getting this service. And there's an MOU. You can get a copy of the MOU. I can send it to you, or you can get it off. You could do a public records request from the Department of Transportation. So, Mr. Peters, this is something I think you and I and the commission need to address. I know code enforcement staff, this is just a tool you use, and I don't blame you guys, but this is more a city manager. I know Mr. Peters did not enact this, and hopefully between Mr. Peters and the current commission, this is something we need to get rid of.
Can I just, real quick, I want to point out as well that when there are access codes for David, they are all what they're called probable cause access codes. They have to have probable cause of a crime, and every misuse of David, in other words, somebody like me who's outspoken, they want to run my tag for no reason without probable cause. Every time they do it, they get a $2,500 fine that you all will be paying for.
So, does anybody else have any questions?
Oh, I got a whole lot more now, but they'll have to wait.
Thank you, Mr. Sosa. Commissioner Sosa, if you want to close now.
Yes, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank all our residents for coming out and, participating today, providing your feedback. This is your city. These are your representatives, and the staff, they work for you. So whatever you want, you need to get a hold of your commissioners and have them get what you guys want. This is about you. This isn't about us being commissioners or staff. This is what you want to see out of your city. So if anybody doesn't have my email address, you want my email address, I can get it to you. And, I just want to thank you guys, especially on a Saturday. I did this on a Saturday to try and get people an opportunity that work during the week to get here. I'd like to maybe start doing town halls alternating between Thursday nights and Saturday mornings for anybody who'd like to come out. Try and do them maybe at least once a quarter going forward now that hopefully the COVID's starting to slide down and more people feel comfortable coming out and getting into a group setting. But I want to thank you guys very much for coming out. Thank you.